Good afternoon. Happy Friday, everybody.
Good afternoon, Mayor.
I'm glad we're doing this on Zoom, actually. Fridays are pretty busy for everybody, so. Okay, I think we're just waiting on the Vice Mayor, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Let me give her a text here. Okay, just send her a text. Okay, here we go.
Hello.
Hey.
Okay, so I'm a little bit late. I had a hard time finding it on my computer, my laptop, but I found it. Okay.
You're right on time. Yes.
All right.
Okay. Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. We are here with the ad hoc subcommittee. I'm happy to be here. I guess first I just want to express how important it is to the council decision that we want to have a really reasonable and efficient process here. One thing that really bothers me is when we have to spend time on things that aren't routine. This is a sort of a special event in my mind that we, as a council, are looking to do a new direction, which is to go with a full-time city attorney. So I really appreciate everybody being here. I do see each person, and Janine, I think you're going to be very key as well, if my experience serves me well, which I can say that now. I've been going through some experiences here in City Hall, so it's important for the Vice Mayor and I to have a strong process for the community to see. And I know it's important to every single person here as well. So, if you hear my dog, I want to apologize in advance. I am at home. But I'll go to Steve here with sort of the update as to what.
Sure, Mayor Tran, thank you, and Vice Mayor Montano. So your meeting here, we have an agenda set for you, and I'd recommend, Mayor, go ahead and you can call the meeting to order. You can roll through the agenda pieces, and then we'll have a presentation for you. At that point, I could just give maybe a very brief intro and then hand it over to staff.
Okay, great. 1 second here. The Outlook's being a little slow here.
I'm happy to guide you through it if needed.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much.
There you go. There's your agenda. If we can
Okay.
scroll to the call to order. Here we go.
My computer's freezing up a little bit here. Okay, we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order, and we'll go to the pledge. Please stand as you may. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And we'll go to the roll call. All right. I am here, Vice Mayor.
Right here.
Present. Yes, fantastic. And we'll move to the approval of the agenda. I'll move to approve the agenda if there's no objections. Hearing no objections, the agenda has been approved. If we can scroll up here.
We do have public forum.
Yes, thank you very much. It's easier for me on the laptop. I don't have to have a couple windows up. Thank you. And we'll go to the public forum. Let's see here. Go to participants. You have 0 attendees here on the Zoom today, so we'll move on here to the announcements. I kind of already gave my announcement, but Vice Mayor, did you want to make any announcements right now before we move forward to the business items?
No, I'm good.
Okay, great.
No
Thank you.
announcements.
And moving down to the business items, the subcommittee role and objectives.
Thank you, Mayor. So I just wanted to let you know, so we do have this presentation for you. We're going to talk a little bit about the City Attorney Subcommittee's roles, their objectives, desired qualifications. We'll review desired qualifications of the City Attorney position, a little bit about the process, which was the recruitment, selection, and appointment, and a bit about transition into a City Attorney's office. So we'll be seeking your input, but I think at this time I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to staff. I believe our Assistant City Manager, Srini Contact, will take it from here.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Good afternoon, Mayor and Vice Mayor. We'll just wait for the presentation to come up. Next slide, please. So here's kind of a look at the agenda. We'll be going over some background and then also sharing some information on the desired qualifications, process, and timeline, both for the recruitment as well as the selection process and transition, fiscal impact before you today and what will come later, as well as some immediate next steps, and then look forward to input from the subcommittee and discussion. So next slide, please. So in terms of just kind of a quick background, Council, as you know, decided to transition to an in-house city attorney on June 21st. And right now we are served by Bess and Krieger. So our city attorney is a contract city attorney. We do have a complement of several specialized attorneys from BB&K, and that's important when we talk about kind of an overall transition to an in-house city attorney's office. On the August 5th meeting, Council approved the establishment of an ad hoc City Council subcommittee. So we're meeting for the first time today and comprised of Mayor Tran and Vice Mayor Montano. And this is basically to provide direction to staff on this transition. And as we walk through the different slides, we will be asking some questions on kind of subcommittee role versus council role, and look forward to your feedback. Now, in terms of the transition to an in-house city attorney office, so not just the city attorney itself, it will require several steps. So of course, first, what we'll be discussing today in detail is the recruitment, selection, and appointment of the city attorney. Once the city attorney is on board, we will also need to develop a staffing model, and that'll be done by the city attorney along with discussions with council, and then recruitment of those other positions in that office. Then transfer of all the legal work from BB&K to the in-house city attorney office to ensure a smooth transition and make sure everything gets transferred over without anything falling through the cracks. And then potentially a selection of a legal firm to provide specialized services because we anticipate that the in-house city attorney office will be fairly limited in number. And so for specialized services, it will require another firm. And this was the model used in the past as well, and by other peer cities based on our research. So next slide, please. And I'm going to hand it over at this point to our HR director, Janine Sayed, and she'll walk you through the desired qualifications as well as the recruitment process and timeline.
So good afternoon, Mayor and Vice Mayor. The city attorney class specification that has been existing in the city was updated recently to put it in the current format. But the experience requirement in the class spec has 7 years of experience practicing law. So for this particular position, you're going to want to have a seasoned professional with 5 years of substantial municipal law experience in the state of California, which is important, and at least 2 years of experience at a management level in a government legal office. The education, obviously, they need to have a JD from an accredited school of law, and they need to have an active bar license with the state of California, and they need to maintain a valid California driver's license. Next slide. The other part of the class spec that talks about the desired qualifications for the position or the knowledge, skills, and abilities section. So presently under knowledge, you have organization duties, powers, and limitations and authority of city government and the city attorney's office, legal principles and practices, including civil, criminal, constitutional, and administrative law and procedure, ordinances, statutes, and court decisions related to municipal corporations, law and practices with specific reference to redevelopment and community development, judicial procedure and rules of evidence, methods of legal research, established precedents and sources of legal reference applicable to municipal activities, principle and practices of public administration, as well as effective office management and supervision. I don't know if we want to wait to the end to get input. So if you want to provide input now, or we can wait until the end, it's your preference.
Thank you very much, Janine. We can wait till the end.
Yeah, okay.
Perfect, thank you. Next slide. So when we look at the abilities, the skills and abilities, obviously communication is important. So communicate clearly, concisely, orally, and in writing to effectively plan, organize, and direct the activities of a city legal office, organize and interpret and apply legal principles and knowledge to complex legal problems, and effectively apply legal knowledge and principles in court, to present statements of fact, law, and argument clearly and logically, present and prepare difficult cases in court, conduct research on complex legal problems, and prepare sound legal opinions, properly interpret and make decisions in accordance with laws, regulations, policies, establish and maintain effective working relationships, and also for the ability to select, supervise, train, and evaluate assigned staff. So let's talk about the recruitment process. Staff is recommending that we hire an executive recruitment firm. This is consistent with other executive level positions that have been conducted in the past with the city. I will tell you that HR has insufficient bandwidth at this time with 2 vacancies to take on an executive level recruitment. And using an executive recruitment firm, it will maximize our ability to reach out and attract candidates, not only those that are looking for jobs, but we'll talk about passive candidates who may not be looking for a job, but because they have relationships with the external recruiter, they can reach out to them and perhaps entice them to come over to the city. The typical recruitment timeline takes about 12 to 15 weeks. That varies depending on the number of steps in the process and the number of meetings needed and schedules, so forth. But that's kind of an average, and we'll go over exactly the steps and kind of what takes place in a typical executive recruitment. Next slide. So when we look at the recruitment process, HR will be, after we get your input today, will provide any additional updates to the class specification. We want to allow the subcommittee as well as the council to provide input on the ideal candidate. Typically in a recruitment brochure, you see a statement that talks about the ideal candidate, what you're looking for in a city attorney. We talk about the job competencies and qualifications, maybe some goals and objectives. HR will complete a salary analysis for the city attorney position, and staff will submit to council an amendment to the salary schedule and amending the position allocations per resolution 1626 that council would have to authorize because we need an authorized position. We would contract with the executive recruitment firm. That executive recruitment firm would help the city establish timelines and process for recruitment. And we would conduct the recruitment and selection process in accordance with the subcommittee and council's guidance. There's a contingent job offer that allows us to then do a full and thorough background process for a final candidate, including the live scan process. And then there's salary negotiation and a final job offer. Next slide. So when we look at each of the activities that are occurring in a recruitment, there's a sort of timeline for each one of the various steps. We would be executing a contract with an executive recruiter after we receive direction from the subcommittee. We estimate that that'll take approximately 3 weeks. We would do a project organization meeting to discuss the process and the schedule and develop timelines. Again, we talked a little bit about the candidate profile statement, where we'd be wanting some input from the subcommittee and council for the desired qualities of a successful candidate. There would be the recruitment timeline, where we're advertising and doing outreach to potential candidates. Typically, this is about 4 weeks. That affords the opportunity to do maximum social online presence, but also do hard copy brochure mailing, sometimes emails and social media. These days, when people are flooded with it, the actual brochure in hand has been very effective. The recruiter would do resume screening, and they would be doing review of applications and doing preliminary interviews to make sure that the candidates that they're presenting to the council and to the city are going to be of the quality that is desired for the position, so they can bring you the top candidates. That takes about 2 to 3 weeks. Next slide. The recruiter typically puts together a written recommendation of the various candidates, and there's a meeting where they go over the qualities and the highlights of the candidates and what they bring to the table. There's a finalist interview selection where we go through the recommendations, we identify the people that we want to speak to. As far as the recruitment process, that would take about a week. If council wanted to do another interview, sometimes you may be really close, you may need another interview to be able to discern that top candidate. There could be a second round, so that's in there as a kind of placeholder, and obviously depending on availability to be able to have those interviews, that could add time to the timeline. There's the background check process that takes some time and negotiations with the leading candidate on a salary. We would have to come back to council to approve the appointee's contract. So you see there's a couple of weeks there. There's confirmation of the selected candidate, another 2 weeks. And typical for an executive recruitment, the candidate gives a 3-week notice to their existing employer. That notice may be impacted by the particular candidate's schedule, calendar. If there's something that's pressing that they need to attend to in their job, there might be a delay there, but a typical notice is about 3 weeks. Next slide. I'm going to turn it back over to Ashwini.
Thank you, Janine. So this kind of lays out the next steps, and especially the immediate next steps with some time frames. So today we're meeting with you and we're looking for input on the desired qualifications as well as the timeline and process. And then if we need an additional subcommittee meeting, we can follow up fairly quickly, maybe next week, if the calendars allow for any follow-up discussion. We are hoping that we can execute the contract by the end of this month, maybe early next month, with the executive recruiter. We have reached out and got some preliminary proposals, but obviously we are waiting for direction from the subcommittee on moving forward with an executive recruiter. We're hoping we can also, based on direction today, can go to the council on September 7th with kind of the qualifications, as well as Janine mentioned, we need to add the position and get approval on the salary, so we can bring that information, because we'll need all of that approved before we can actually go out with the job posting and the brochure. And so we'll finalize the job spec in early September, begin recruitment in mid-September. And then, as Janine walked you through the different steps, we're looking at kind of a November, December timeframe where we would be engaging both the subcommittee and the council. The subcommittee may want to be involved initially, looking at the finalists before it goes to council. So depending on the process, it would be somewhere in those months. And then again, we would come back, we put a TBD there because contract negotiations, it's hard to say. We could maybe have an expedited process, but not sure how long that would take. That's something that the appointee would be working with the council on. And then, of course, the backgrounding and notice time. So this is the tentative timeline based on some of the assumptions staff has made today. Next slide, please. And then for the fiscal impact, again, we've put in a range for the executive recruiter. It'll kind of depend based on how many meetings we want. At this point, we have assumed that public comment would come at the September 7th meeting. So on anything related to desired qualifications, we're not anticipating an extensive kind of community outreach engagement process. So if that were to be included, that will, of course, increase the timeline as well as the cost for the recruiter. The funding we're proposing to come from unanticipated expenditures reserve for the recruiter itself. And as I mentioned early on, the in-house city attorney office would include other staff besides the city attorney itself. And those fiscal impacts related to kind of the staffing of the full office will be brought forward for council consideration in the future once the city attorney is on board and determines a staffing model that may be needed. Next slide, please. And so from the subcommittee today, again, we're looking for kind of input on the minimum qualifications, knowledge, skills, and abilities, as Janine covered, and any other desired qualifications. And then, of course, direction on the recruitment process and timeline, including being able to proceed with an executive recruiting firm. And again, timeline in terms of council role and subcommittee role. So we can go back to those tables to get your specific input, and then the community engagement piece as well. If what we are assuming is in line with what the subcommittee is thinking, or if you would like to have a more extensive community engagement process. Next slide, I think that's the end. Yes, thank you. So let's not get out of the presentation. We want to go back to slides.
Thank you very much. Each of you, thank you for the presentation. I thought it was pretty good for where we're at today. You know, this sort of change to the city attorney's office is really a long-term decision. I think our last full-time city attorney was here for 7 years or so. And so I'm just feeling very confident knowing that we have a city council that's really, truly dedicated to our city. No other jurisdiction, if I may say, or higher office. And so myself, I'm just feeling it in my heart that we'll be serving this community for decades to come. And I think that today is sort of the first step for our ad hoc subcommittee. And so, yes, Ashwini, if we can go back to those tables that you were bringing up, we can.
Yes, and maybe I'm trying to
want us to do some narrowing, so I'll be happy.
Yeah, maybe not this one. Let's go to the more detailed timeline. Yes, so that we can walk through kind of the timeline as well as you know, who would be the lead or approving entity, Mayor.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, great. Well, I think the time frame. Yeah. Okay. Great. Let's go to the Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. So Ashwini, thank you for your presentation. So on this, the recruiter, executive recruitment firm, do we already have someone in mind, or do we, are we going to be going through a selection process to choose a executive recruitment firm as we are with the city attorney once they give us the names, the potential candidates?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So what we do generally for executive recruiting firms, and Janine, please feel free to add, but when we know we have an executive recruitment, we reach out to all of the firms to get proposals. And then once we get those proposals, we review them. So we did some preliminary work leading up to this meeting. But again, we didn't want to presume that we were okay to proceed with this. So we haven't selected a firm. We've done some initial outreach and got some preliminary proposals. And I'll let Janine add to that if she wants to.
Yeah, there's nothing additional to add there. We would be making a selection based on, I like to look at recent city attorney recruitments or attorney recruitments. Obviously, if they've done a recent recruitment for that level recruitment, they've got additional contacts. So that's a big factor in the selection process.
Okay, so when you say city, are you talking about the Bay Area cities?
I'm looking at someone who's done a recruitment for a city attorney or a county attorney where they've done a recruitment in the recent past, not necessarily in the Bay Area. A position of this type, as long as they're in California, I would presume that if somebody wanted to work in the city of Milpitas, they might relocate for the opportunity. So we look at firms that have done work in California that have done a recent city attorney recruitment in the last year or so.
Okay, yeah. We just did a recruitment. As you know, I serve on the VTA, and we went through a whole process. So I'm really familiar with. I'm glad we went through that process because now I know I have a gist of what it entails to go through the process of recruiting and also interviewing, and it is extensive. But I was just wondering how we were going to select the recruitment firm. And I really feel that it's really important that we have a local firm, not only because, you know, we know that living in this area is very expensive, and having someone that's local they already know what to expect, and they probably already live in this area, so in the Bay Area. So, but that might be a different. I don't know if this is the right time to make that proposal, or just to keep it in the back of our minds that that's what we would like. That's what I would like to see. Someone local, no out of state, no statewide. It should be local because they know the area and the needs. That's my 2 cents.
Okay, great, fantastic. And maybe Janine can share with us some of her thoughts as well as to the recruiters' headquarters, or so to say.
For me, I think that where the recruiter is located is not nearly as important as their experience in conducting recruitments in the state of California. There are recruiters that have experience with public sector are very different than recruiting firms and placement firms, private sector placement firms that charge fees for the placement of the individual. It's just a different selection process. There are a handful of recruiters in the state of California that are typically used in the HR circles that have extensive experience in doing recruitments at cities, at counties, and at the state level. And so those would be the individuals, the firms that I'm well aware of and are very known in HR circles for doing executive recruitments of this type. And becoming familiar with Milpitas and its surroundings, that's part of the dialogue and discussion of what are you looking for in the qualities of a city attorney, and getting a flavor of what's so special about Milpitas. All of that comes in line with the recruitment brochure. So those are what I would say are more important factors, is how long has it been since they've done a city attorney recruitment? What executive level recruitments have they handled? Have they handled them well? Are they recommended by other organizations? Have there been successful recruitments? And have they been mindful of timelines and responsive to needs? Those are important factors for me.
And exactly, they need to be mindful of timelines. And usually when you have a local, they can, they might want to come and meet, or to me, it's more time management, and also cost. If the further away a firm is, to me, that right there, that signals cost. So I'm trying to be mindful of making this process efficient and also effective in terms of cost. So that's where I'm coming from. And, this Bay Area has some of the notch firms that I'm aware of, because, you have San Francisco has a slew of really some of the best legal teams in the nation. So I'm pretty sure that we can find a firm that is local. And
Do a point of information here, Vice Mayor, and do a point of information.
sure.
And I'll ask Janine, the top prospect for our recruitment firm, where are they located?
The firms that I reached out to, I'd have to go back and take a look. I know that we've worked recently with a firm that's located out of Oregon. I've worked with them when I was with Solano County, and they've done a number of placements in California and in the Bay Area. There was another firm that we reached out to that was in Roseville, another one in somewhere in the Bay Area. I really have to go. The ones I'm remembering, those are the three that I know: a Sacramento, a Roseville, and an Oregon firm. But I don't know all of the locations of all of the firms. I just know by reputation and prior recruitments and their experience.
Right, absolutely. The top priorities. I hear you. So I would have to state my preference, since we're just talking about this topic right now. We should square it away. I'd like for the recruitment firm to be in California. I think our great state will deliver us a recruitment firm that we could be proud of. So I just
I agree.
want to keep business here in California. And with technology and Zoom, and who knows where we'll be in the next few months, folks can Zoom in. But Roseville, Sacramento, those areas, that really brightens me up. So I know the number one thing is to get the best recruiter. That I won't deny. But going to Oregon or out of state is, to me, something I'd prefer not to do. So I do want to keep this meeting going forward efficiently. We have to have some time considerations. The Vice Mayor and I do have a 3 p.m. Transportation Subcommittee meeting, if my calendar serves me well. So I think we're going to get a lot done here in this hour. And thanks to all the folks that are tuning in on Facebook Live and YouTube.com. Happy Friday, everybody. Thanks for being here with us. And we'll do our best not to keep you here for too long. But if you are watching the recording, we'll do our best not to keep you there too long either. So let's keep going forward.
So, Mr. Mayor, can I conclude from the conversation that you are okay with the executive recruiter? However, you want that recruiter to be located in California. So we can move on to the next decision.
Yes, please. I'm glad you asked, Janine. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Janine.
Okay. Mayor, would you like to go through these line item wise?
Yeah, we'll do one slide at a time, one line at a time.
Okay.
I really appreciate staff and your work, whoever that really contributed to this body of work here we have today. I actually believe we're going to go steady and deliberate and open with this process. And um, it really helps that our current city attorney has been so gracious and professional for this transition. It is a transition, and I couldn't ask for a better transition. Our current city attorney is here, and he will be here with us until the day changes how things are in their office. And so it has allowed us this time frame. We'll go one slide at a time. I'm not going to go line by line myself before I go to the vice mayor, but I am okay with this first slide, Vice Mayor.
Yes, I'm good with that. Let's proceed.
Okay, can go to the next slide, please. So Mayor, just on the number 6, I wanted to, we had said pending legal review. We did talk with our city attorney, and it looks like we could, if the subcommittee wishes it, we could have the executive recruiter in closed session first brief the subcommittee on the finalists and then go to council. So if we can build that into the schedule, if that would be the preference of the subcommittee.
I agree with that.
I agree with that.
Okay. And then again, what we did was for the finalists interview process, we've just kind of allowed for a week. If we did want a second round, we would try to do it within that week. And if the subcommittee is able to review the finalists before the council, then we would just go to council in closed session for whoever is recommended by the subcommittee, and then have a second round if needed within that week's time frame.
Yes, that sounds good.
Very well.
Okay. And I think for other than that, it's pretty much process on this one in terms of how once you have a selected candidate, really the backgrounding, negotiations, we have to go to closed session for approval of the contract and then go to open session, and we have to post it for 10 days. So that's what that time frame is about. And then depending on what the notice is. Now, the only thing is the contract negotiations, we've just kind of assumed it goes really quick and smooth, but that could obviously put the time frame out, and that's not something staff will really be involved in as much. So, okay. Anything else on this slide?
I'm okay with this slide. It's fine with me.
Okay.
I'm okay with it. However, serving on the VTA board when we were doing our recruitment for a general manager, we did receive, even though they weren't part of the applicants weren't part of the finalist list, we did receive the applicants, the candidates that applied. We were able to see their resume or their application. I'm wondering if that would be a process, or just don't go there, or should just not sure if that's something that you would like to see it, Mayor, or we should just keep to the ones that are given to us by the recruiter.
Well, I think when we have our open recruitment, we're going to have a number of applicants. I think the city council as a whole, even in closed session, if appropriate, we're going to have access to the whole list of applicants and their resumes, and I'm sure there'll be a table or a spreadsheet that'll show sort of metrics to their qualifications, years in service, and areas of focus and all that. So
Okay, I'll leave it
absolutely,
to
Vice Mayor.
I'll leave it to HR to handle all that.
We'll always have that information. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And so again, this is just sort of reiterating some of the immediate next steps in terms of timeline, and then overall timeline. As you see, it does put us towards the end of the calendar year, and depending on how long contract negotiations take, it may be a little bit over. So this would just be bringing the city attorney on board, and then we anticipate after that a few months to kind of bring other staff in and completely transition out of the existing contract firm. And then the city attorney, as I mentioned, may also want to look at a RFP process for selecting a firm to provide specialized services. But we haven't included that in here because that would be something that the city attorney would kind of work with council and develop. So I think if in terms of timeline and process, I think we got the feedback we needed. Maybe we can go back to the slides on the qualifications, please, and see if there's anything, Mayor and Vice Mayor, if you'd want to add to that. So I think go one more or two more slides back, please. Yeah. So if this looks okay to the subcommittee, or if you'd like to add, and again, these are minimum qualifications. So in the brochure, when we talk about the ideal candidate, there may be some things in terms of desired qualifications that you'd like us to incorporate, and we're looking for that feedback.
Awesome. I
good
just
with
have
that.
one thought here before I go to the Vice Mayor. I got one thought here with the experience. And just for the public's information, or even my information, is under experience, at least 2 years experience in a management level in a government till legal office, meaning that would be also for assistant city attorneys as well to apply. They would qualify. Okay, great.
That's good.
Okay,
Jenny?
Vice Mayor, did you want to add anything?
So I'm assuming that when you say includes at least 2 years experience in a management level in governmental legal office, and then above that it says 5 years of substantial municipal law in the state of California. So 7 years of experience practicing law at least. So are you saying right there in the first line that they should have experience working in a city with a firm, or is that what you're saying right there? That they,
Well, I think that says that this could be a candidate that either directly worked for a municipal government, or maybe even someone that was a contracted city attorney that worked for a municipal sort of institution, as long as they've held that that seat in that office as a city attorney. Is that what you're going to?
Yeah. I just want to make sure that they work for us in a city as a city attorney. Okay.
So for example, it could be someone from, like, let's say Fremont. I'm just saying it's right there. Let's say Fremont, let's say it's a city attorney from Fremont, let's just say. They can come here. Or if it's a contracted city attorney from San Jose, I'm just making it up. They're still qualified because they're working for a municipality.
Okay. I'm good with this.
And just to clarify, Janine, if you could chime in, when we say governmental legal office, that could include like special districts?
Oh, yes.
Right, as long as it's a government office. Clarification on the substantial municipal law. If somebody worked at a county, do you want to afford somebody who may have been in a county law office that handled redevelopment and the full body of work, because some counties do have roads and public works and those sorts of things. So do you want to expand that to afford attorneys who've worked in a county law office?
Yes, actually.
I think that's a good idea.
I thought that would have been included.
Okay, well, I'll make those changes before we bring it to the full council.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, do we want to go to the next slide?
Okay, I think this is great. It's kind of textbook here. I have no comments.
I'm good with it as well.
Okay, and then the final slide on these abilities.
Same, yeah.
Same thing.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I think I just want to make sure we got everything we needed to move forward. I think so. Janine, do you have anything more we need direction on?
I muted myself. No, I think that we've got everything that we need to bring forward to the full council as far as getting the ideal candidate statement input from council and the community. I think will be good.
And when we bring on September 7th, as we mentioned, we will bring forward kind of a salary range, and that'll be based on benchmarking data from peer cities. And we'll kind of bring that information for council consideration, and we'll need to set that so that we can include that in the brochure.
We love data. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's it, Mayor and Vice Mayor, unless you have any additional feedback for us.
Yeah, I felt like there's a couple more slides, no?
Well, we just had the fiscal impact. Sorry, Risha, can you bring the presentation back up, please? Yeah, so the fiscal impact piece, I think that's where we would propose it come from. Since this action by the council was taken after the budget was adopted. So, using the unanticipated expenditures reserves would be appropriate. Again, we put a range for the executive recruiter. I guess the one thing on the community outreach, if there's any additional feedback on that, like I mentioned earlier, we are anticipating that any community input on the qualifications would come at the September 7th council meeting. We're not planning an extensive community engagement process for this
I think that's fine. September 7th is fine. And we're always open to taking public comments.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
It's just, we'll all, I think the feedback will be fine with public comments for the agenda items. So we'll keep moving forward here.
Can you, I have one, Mayor, had a
Yes.
question. When you are recruiting for the recruiter, sometimes some recruiters, they have they're doing other searches for other cities. Can that be disclosed? Because I don't want them to be saying, well, where your case or your file is on the back burner because we're dealing with this city first, or I just want some kind of disclosure that what other cities is that firm working with, because we don't want to be pushed to the side and us take a back seat. We want to make sure that this firm has dedicates all the time to us that is needed to get this going. So I want that disclosed.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. And Janine, do you want to comment on that? I mean, generally, we will require a commitment. We'll want to know who the lead is. And then we also require a schedule commitment. So they have to deliver within the time that's outlined in the contract. And, we work with a lot of these recruitment firms. They know that their reputation is also important. So they want to deliver as well. But I don't know that they would necessarily be able to disclose all of their clients at a given time. There may be some confidentiality issues. So Janine, do you want to speak to that?
Well,
Sure. So we can look online if there is a known recruitment that the firm is conducting for a competing city attorney or attorney position at that time. We'll be able to look on their website, but if they're in negotiation with other jurisdictions or have put out bids with other cities or county governments, they're not necessarily going to disclose that. But as Ashwini said, they do give us a dedicated recruiter. They have a timeline. They have commitments that they know they need to meet. And their reputation, as Ashwini said, is on the line. Future business is on the line. So recruiters are very mindful of making sure they meet those deadlines.
Okay, yeah, I just want to make sure that they do commit the time that, that we, we're paying them for their time and that we get 100% of their time that we contract with them. That's it. Thank you.
Will do. Thank you.
That's good to know. Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, Ashwini, can you let us know if you need any more information from us? Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. I think this was very useful and we can move
Right.
forward with the process. Thank you.
I do want to ask a question based on the last agenda item, number 21 at the last city council meeting. One of the council members suggested that our city go with a elected city attorney. Now, I'm opposed to that idea, but I don't think there are any cities that I'm aware of that have elected city attorneys. I don't think even our charter allows for that. So maybe someone knows something I don't. Is there a city out there with an elected city attorney, or is that even possible? Let's debunk this.
So I can speak to that.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
happen to work for a city which had an elected city attorney, and that's per charter. The city of San Diego has an elected city attorney,
Oh, it's a big city. Yeah, it's a big city. Okay.
and it's a charter city.
It's a
Yes, absolutely right.
That's key. We're a general law city, obviously.
And
Right.
according to Google, San Francisco.
Right. You know, it's not like we need a DA in this town or anything like that, but you know, I think I do want to make a comment about that. I think it's very expensive to have an elected city attorney in the event that elected city attorney, you know, would want to leave for another city, then we'd have to host an election every single time, it seems like, and even like appoint a city attorney until the next election. It just doesn't make sense whatsoever. So I do want to comment on that because I don't want sort of that idea not being met. And I do want to meet that idea with saying that I just don't think absolutely it's a very good idea at all for our city to have a.
Senator, I might also add that you would not have a contractual relationship in that case as well.
Right. So they would be giving up sort of authority from the city council.
Exactly.
Right. So I just want to comment on that because I just want to make sure we cover everything as we usually do. So, you know, I love to run efficient meetings. Should we pull up the agenda? Where are we at? I have it in front of me too.
I think we covered everything, Mayor. We covered the next steps in our presentation as well. Now, the only thing is I think we've received all of the direction we were looking for. So we don't see the need for a follow-up subcommittee meeting, but if there's anything you'd like us to bring back, we're happy to do that.
Great. No, I think that's great. You know, if we can have a really good, short, efficient, reasonable, appropriate meeting, then we're going to do all those things all the time. And I do want to thank all of you for your work on this. This is not, again, a routine matter. And I think the time will be very well spent over the next short period of time for the city for many years to come. And I'm feeling pretty good. We got a great city council. And before we adjourn, I want to go to the vice mayor for any comment.
I just want to say thank you so much for staff for your due diligence and doing all the research and coming up with a great solid plan. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Great. This meeting's adjourned. Have a happy Friday, everybody.
Thank you.
And
Bye.
bye.
Bye.